let me quickly talk about what we do at CodeMonk and the reason why we are hosting this particular coffee section for developers and anyone interested in becoming a developer. So quick intro about why we started this. So we started a developer coffee section because we feel it is important for developers, software engineers, IT personnel to come in, meet with each other, share their experience, their journey towards becoming a top IT personnel. So we thought about that, and we felt, yes, this is the time to actually get to bring together everyone within the IT space, most especially the software engineers, so that they can tend to learn from each other. Somebody trying to join this, let me quickly invite him over. We decided to get this live so that developers and software engineers can have an hour to chat with each other and share their experience. So why this topic for today? Remote work and how to apply for tech jobs. So remote work has become an increasingly popular thing in tech industry, providing opportunities for individuals from anywhere around the world. I remember some few years back, remote work is actually not something that everyone talks about, but since 2020, it's become a buzzword, and every third person are interested in working remotely because of the fact that they have a combine of work-life balance that is better and a good choice. So if you're actually, okay, yeah, we have Saeed joining. So if you're actually looking to venture into remote work and you are looking to also apply to tech jobs, then we need to have experienced people that have actually done this and been working remotely for some time, and we want them to share their experience. This would actually help any other person looking to embark on this journey to have a very solid idea on what to go about and how to go about it. Thank you, John Santos. Thank you, yeah. So I'm going to be inviting you guys up to the stage now. Can you make your video available? Saeed, please, you can also make your video available so I can invite you. John, please, if you can make your video, yeah. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Hello, I'm there.
So, yeah. Thank you, John. Thank you, Saeed. Thank you, Drew. Thank you all for coming. Please, let's start by introducing yourself. I'm going to start with Saeed. Let Saeed introduce himself, and yeah, we can start with that.
Hey, good morning, everyone, or good evening, wherever you're calling in from. I'm Saeed. I've been in tech well over a decade now. Got my start with this guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. And the last 6 years, I've ran a nonprofit coding school. And that's evolved into Kadena, which upskills developers in emerging tech like GPT, Web3. And yeah, I'd love to help you guys with your career here however I can. It's an interesting time to be in tech. I've never seen anything in my life. So yeah, I'll turn it to the next presenter.
Yeah, thank you, Saeed. I'm highly excited to have you in here. John, please, can you give a brief intro about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So I'm John Santos, and I'm a software developer, and I'm also a UX researcher. I'm currently located in Kigali, Rwanda. I don't know if you know the country. Rwanda is an African country. Yeah, I have some experience in web development and UX research. Yeah. that's all about me.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, John. To get started, let me start by asking my first question from John. John, please, can you tell us about your experience with remote work and how has it impacted your career?
Sure. I think remote work's been overall positive. However, remote work is changing. It's changing by the month here in America. But overall, yeah, if you're talented, you can likely get hired from anywhere in the world. That's a plus. Some of the drawbacks though is, networking with your colleagues is harder, so you've got to make time for that. Or if the company doesn't have an office in where you live, it can be difficult if you want to switch up your work style. But yeah, overall, positive experience. And again, like I said, if you're talented, it exposes you to some of the best companies in the world.
I think I'm going to support that. Yeah, I have the opportunity of working from. I'm currently located in Lagos, and the HQ of CodeMonk is in London, and this is how remote work works. So just like Said said, if you are actually talented, then there is no limitation to what you can achieve with remote working. Yeah, maybe Said can tell us a bit more. So what are the tips for job seekers? Just in an elaborate way, just tell us what tips should job seekers be looking out for when applying to remote work, and what should they do differently from traditional job applications?
I think one of the key things is communication, because there's certain cues that you're not going to have in person. So picking up on someone's emotion or tone a bit more can be challenging. People might have mic issues. But one of the most, in addition to communication, just having a good internet connection, particularly audio. Video going in and out is fine, but it's super important for people to be able to hear you. To the point where I went out on Amazon and bought just a good quality mic for these types of interviews. Particularly people listening to podcasts all the time, so they're just conditioned to have a high level of like audio quality. But don't worry if your connection isn't crystal clear or perfect. People are still understanding. In terms of actually applying, it will mean you have to send out volumes and volumes of cold applications if you're going to apply cold. The best, honestly, is to get an internal referral. Particularly though, I've seen, like, for candidates who don't have a traditional educational background, say you haven't gone to four-year university, you went to a coding boot camp, certain industries are more forgiving. So I would target Web3 companies, for example, over like FAANG companies. And it should be important to note that the FAANG companies are moving away from remote. They're going towards, say, like a 3-day hybrid week. So you might have less of an opportunity to do remote with larger companies. And I'd say very similar advice to just applying for regular jobs, which, play to your strengths. If you know a certain dev tool really well and that company is hiring or that ecosystem is hiring, lean into that, jump in on the Discord, jump in on Twitter, chat with the team, and build relationships that way. It's incredibly hard these days to just cold apply, and it is exhausting, but sometimes you have to do it. Maybe someone can build a GPT bot to help automate that process.
Okay, yeah, I think that is pretty clear. Communication is very important, and I think this is one of the most important things. There are a lot of accent levels, and you have to make sure you communicate well, and where people can easily understand what you're saying. So it is pretty important, just what Jabal mentioned. I don't know if John is back, so that John and Drup, if you guys are back, so that I can have you back in here. Okay,
Yes,
yeah. Okay, yeah, let me add you up. So, yeah, the last question I asked was, how do you, I mean, what are some of the tips for job seekers looking for remote work? If you have some of these tips, just like Said mentioned, he mentioned that communication. What other tips do you think is important to actually apply or to actually get remote jobs? John.
yeah. Okay, thank you. I think I will say I will talk about an important point about regarding communication, and it directly links to an issue that I got in the past while working remotely with Torre. So I started as a junior developer. I mean, a very junior developer, if I can say, because I was in a team of senior developers and I was facing so many issues. And I found that they are using a language that I didn't use before. It was Scala, and I didn't know Scala. So for me, it was a process of learning and working at the same time. So the point that I want to talk about is regarding asking for help. Most of the time we face some issues, and if you choose to fight alone without asking help, to others, the journey is going to be very hard for you. So I found that this is a very, very important point to know. When you are facing an issue as a remote worker, please find time to ask others, because sometimes you may even get a small task, but it requires you to know some additional skills, or maybe to know some additional knowledge, and it takes you too much time than expected because you didn't take time to ask others. While if you could ask, they could give you some tips that help you to save time. Yeah, I think that's a very, very important point to take into account for remote developers.
Yeah, I agree with that. Communication, I think, is the major thing here. If you have say few tasks and you seem not to understand, it is important to point it out to your manager so that you can have a well-detailed explanation on that. And this is very important because you are going to be evaluated based on your understanding of each task. And without you having the basic understanding, then you are going to be deemed not having the experience or the exposure to actually take up such what's it called, roles. So communication is an important factor in getting remote jobs. So let's discuss. Can you share some common misconceptions about remote work, and how can job seekers address some of these misconceptions with potential employers? Let me give an example. I think some few years ago, like last year, I think last year January, I applied to a job, and I got a reply like, you actually don't, from the region you are, the value of money you're asking for is not what you should ask for. So some of these things are some of the constraints that people maybe in some countries are facing, and I would like maybe Said to expatiate on that. Then John, you can take on after Said.
Yeah, great points. And just hearing what everyone said, and I'm looking at the chat, I just want to add some additional tips and then I'll address a question. So you mentioned accent. If you have an accent, just remember to slow down. That's the most important thing. But regards to work authorization, I found the Web3 companies are the most flexible. Like they'll hire from anywhere. Not all of them, but about half of them compared to say your traditional Web2s. And with hybrid, it means you're going to have to be in proximity to a tech center or a tech city where these companies are based if you're going to look at hybrid. which to your point on salaries will then affect your salary band. So another big misconception with remote work is people think you can take your laptop and go work on a beach somewhere. And in my experience, from the last two companies I've been with working remotely, it's not the case. You're kind of chained to your laptop, and a lot of it is taking meetings. So you've got to be online. So you might be in a beautiful country, but you're still going to be working. So I want to dispel that myth. Maybe there are certain jobs or certain roles where you don't need to interface with people a lot, so you can have more of your time back. But for the most part, you're still putting in hours, which brings me to the other point. You really want to screen for, is there a meeting culture or not? Personally, I found meetings to be a complete waste of time most of the time. And a lot of meetings could be emailed. So that's one thing. I think another big thing to look for with remote work is who's going to be your manager. The company could be a bad company, but if you have a great manager, that's going to make or break you, particularly in a remote work environment. Because remember, you're not seeing this person every day. You're not having coffee with them at the office. So you're dependent on a lot of trust. And then an important point you brought up is your salary band. And so different countries will have different requirements on that. So for example, in New York City, the companies have to disclose what the salary band is. And sometimes I've noticed they play very hard on that. Sometimes they will flip it on the candidate and ask you, what's the salary from the last place you worked? That's illegal here. So be aware of what the local laws are around those things. But I always recommend turning the question back on them and asking them, what's the salary? And then lastly, because it's remote, culture is very important, and it's going to manifest differently through Zoom or whatever tools they're using. So always make sure you're asking, what's the culture? Some companies might send you a mug and a t-shirt, but that's not culture. So really get to the bottom of it as well, because just like having a good manager, being a part of the wrong culture could make or break your career at a remote company. So I'll stop there and turn it over to John.
Yeah, John, you should maybe you can add something more to what Said just said.
Yeah, of course. I think some companies should understand the importance of remote work, because I found that some companies still have a kind of distinguishment between remote workers and those on site. While with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, remote work has become more necessary than ever before. It had enabled many developers to continue working safely, even from home, while allowing business to maintain some operations during the lockdown and other restrictions. But as I can say, remote work, it helps increase productivity, and it eliminates the need for long commits and minimize distractions from the office environment. Also, I can say that remote work can lead to a better work-life balance. So as a developer, they are able to schedule their work around the personal lives more easily. So I think this is something to take into account. And also the issue that I found is regarding the restriction from countries. Some countries have some hard restrictions, like for remote works that require some work authorizations and some additional documents. I think it's a challenge that we should maybe discuss and find how to solve this issue, because it's really general somehow.
Yeah, I think to buttress your point, I've seen some of these companies where you see them listed as a global opportunity, and then at the end of the day, they tend to tell you, if you're not located in Europe or something, you're not going to get that particular job, even when you are qualified. So these are some of the things companies need to start considering. And okay, that brings me to my next question. Yeah, I know this is a bit off, but what do you think companies should do when evaluating a candidate? And what do you think would be the right way to evaluate a candidate for a remote job?
I think the
Aside.
first, okay, I think the first thing that matter is, I mean, the first element is we will talk about skills. First of all, we'll talk about skills, because if you are going to work as a developer, it's because you have skills that require you to, I mean, you have the required skills to be a developer. But secondly, we will have, they will have to require you to maybe to know some remote work principles, communication skills, and some other general skills, because it's not only about knowing programming or those programming languages. Yeah, an employee is more than that, is more than skills. I mean, those main skills. There are other skills that are so much important to be added to your main skills. So what I think companies should do is, first of all, to make all those processes clear before going to the next steps, because some companies will be giving you some tests. I mean, so many tests, so many interviews. Then at the end, you just found that there was a blocker related to the location, while you've already done your tests. Some interviews. I think companies should be making those points clear before the candidates reach to the step of maybe interview or offer.
Okay. Yeah. Said, do you have something to add to that?
Yes, to what he's saying on steps, it's happened to me a lot, and I call those fishing expeditions, where they know they will not hire you, but they still put you through their process because they want to gain information from you. So be careful once the interviews start feeling less of an interview and more like consulting. Know that they're just trying to pick your brain for free, and maybe it's not maybe the role is not even existed. And I've had that happen a lot, where I'm interviewing, the role gets pulled, they haven't hired anyone, but they're still interviewing. So I'd be very cautious. I hate to say it, the companies will not adjust to candidates, particularly in this environment. We've got so many layoffs here. Facebook just laid off another 10,000 people. There's a lot of talent in the market in the US. And so the companies know right now, they have the power and the upper hand. And so, as has been typical, they still treat candidates with, not a lot of respect in my experience. So yeah, I would vet hard. I always ask ahead of time, how many rounds of interviews are there? The next part that these companies do a lot is these take-home assignments. And lately I've been seeing they've been getting more and more extreme. So one of the things I'd recommend to companies, though, is actually have the take-homes be relevant to the job description. Sometimes, like if it's a DevRel role, I've seen companies ask for full-on marketing plans, which, DevRels really don't do marketing. You can work alongside marketing, but your primary job is not to market like a traditional marketer would do. So just be careful on the nature of the take-home assignment. And lastly, I've been seeing companies, the job description is listed as one thing, but as you're interviewing, different team members start to interpret the job description differently. Or the company spot, okay, you're very strong in this point, let's switch it up and let's, adjust this for the candidate without telling you. So I would really clarify through every step of the process. One, if you're interviewing for the same job, I've had it happen where I showed up to the interview and they didn't inform me and I was interviewing for a completely different job. So clarify those things. And as you're going through the loop, particularly these days as well, I've been noticing these companies have gotten really extreme where before, in my opinion, it shouldn't take more than 3 people to vet a candidate, plus like a take home or some kind of assignment. You're going on 6, 7 rounds of interviews, and sometimes it doesn't stop. And each person I've had this happen recently, 2 take homes from the same company. And I think sometimes these take homes are things these people have to do and they actually just pass it on to you. And there's a couple other things too I just want to throw in there from what John mentioned previously. In terms of like cultures and soft skills and whatnot, make sure your resume is, you might require a different resume when you apply. But once you actually now have gotten the interview, give them the resume you actually want them to see. Because the people who are going to be interviewing you next, all they're going to know about you is your resume. And sometimes they may not even read your resume. So be prepared to have your story down to tell them. So I'll stop there for the next question.
Okay, so I think that brings my next question, because we all have seen what is happening currently in the IT, in the tech market, where we have a lot of layoffs, and that has affected a lot of tech professionals. And I am going to ask this because I feel, what is the best method for tech professionals to work right now? Is it on a freelance base, or should it be on a permanent base? Because looking at what is currently happening, which I'm sure would still take some time to actually recover, what would be the best method for tech professionals to take on from now? Should it be freelance, or should they still continue looking for permanent roles for the jobs they are applying for?
I think I can have something to say there.
Okay.
Yeah, about the 2 points. Okay, I would say that if you choose to work as a freelance, there are some requirements that should be taken into account. First of all, it will be regarding the skills you choose to use, because sometimes people think when you are going to be a freelance, you'll be free, you'll be working for your own. But even a freelancer is working for someone, there are deadlines. So if you choose to work as a freelancer because you don't like the pressure you get while working as a full-time employee, I think this is not going to be a good method, or maybe it's not going to be a good choice. But if you choose to be a freelancer because you need to increase your skills, maybe, or maybe you need to increase your skills in general, do it, but don't think this is going to let you be free, as a word is going to be said, maybe as because it's a freelance, so I'm going to be free. It doesn't work like that. What I can advise people is, some platforms gives you a way of, you can be working as a freelance, but maybe later you will be gaining a full-time opportunity. That's also another way of working. What I can say is, the better way for me is maybe to try the 2 methods at the same time. You can be applying on the full-time and contract jobs, while in the other side you have your gigs as a freelancer. And if you get a full-time job, then you stop working as a freelancer until you get another opportunity to be back as a freelancer. That's what I can say.
Yeah, so Simon brings up a great point, right? He mentions the word independent contractor, and these days I'd recommend using contractor over freelancer on your resume, because there's such a stigma. I had one interviewer criticize my well over a decade work experience as a bunch of freelance projects, when they were not. They're actually companies. So there's such a stigma around freelancing, at least in the US, that if you can use the word contractor. Also, if the person you're freelancing with is nice, maybe you want to ask them if they could be a recommendation for you as well. Some of these companies will ask for a reference check, so that's always a nice plus. And then, as many people mentioned, kind of the hybrid approach, freelancing and searching. Searching for a job is a full-time job. So you want to make sure you have freelance projects that are scoped properly, where it gives you time to interview and focus on the job search. And then you may want to look for potential freelance jobs that are contract to hire, which, to an earlier point, and I forgot to mention this, particularly a lot of international jobs are contract to hire jobs or contract jobs. And I've seen companies go through third parties to hire contractors in places like India, but internally they consider them full-time employees. So just a heads up on that. And then generally, it's a personal decision as well. Like if you have 3 months of savings and you think you can land a job in 3 months, I would say double the time. It may take you actually 6 months with the current market. And maybe make sure you have enough money to last then. But in general, I'd say like take the money as it comes and do what it takes to keep yourself busy. Because one of the hardest things in the job search is just the passing time for the next interviews or for the calls. So freelancing is a great way to just keep yourself busy, keep your skills fresh, maybe even learn new skills that you can talk about. So now I'll stop there for the next question.
Okay, yeah. So that brings me to what are some of the biggest challenges of remote work, and how can job seekers prepare themselves for these challenges? There are a lot of challenges when it comes to work-life balance with remote work. Sometimes you feel overwhelmed with jobs, and you want to take more time than usual to actually see out the tasks. So what do you think should be how to actually put this into check so that you actually don't overwork yourself? Working remotely.
So I would set boundaries, and it's so important. No matter what's happening, at least ask for, like, make sure your Sunday is off and for yourself. Because if you don't, you're going to burn out. It happened to me. I was working 7 days a week, round the clock for this company. And eventually I left that role. So make sure you put, super hard boundaries. Like my manager would call me on a Saturday and be like, hey, can you get the presentation done or this other thing done? And some of these things were not even in my role. And if you don't say no, they're going to keep pushing you. The next thing is time zones. And it's going to be an important one when they're hiring you. A lot of companies are in Pacific or Eastern time in the US. But it's happened to me. Most of my colleagues were on the West Coast. So I was really working 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. days, which is technically illegal in the US, but you can't do anything really. So if you've got colleagues that are spanning across multiple time zones, you might be working very long hours. So maybe ask about that when you're interviewing. And then, a lot of these things I try to pre-screen during the interview process or before I even interview. So I think some hints that are going to give you a sense of the company is what's their meeting culture like. If you see that if they say they have a lot of meetings, I would kind of run because what tends to happen is your day gets full with meetings. And so the only time you can work is after all the meetings. And then lastly, again, ask about culture in a subtle way, because culture is very hard to do remotely. Some companies dial in very well, some companies don't. But you want to get a sense, is it a hustle culture? Is it a burnout culture? If the employees are running to your interviews out of breath and look like they haven't slept in a bit, you probably don't want to work there. So be careful of that. Check their Glassdoor reviews, check their Blind, check their Twitter, check their Discord, honestly, even check their LinkedIn, just to get a sense of the sentiment. And of course, all these places are biased. Like the companies will put like fake class or 5-star reviews. And then the one-star reviews are very biased. So try to get somewhere in between. And lastly, I'll wrap with this and turn it over to John. If you have rapport with an employee during the interview and you two hit it off, you can ask them more candid questions like, hey, what's it really like working here? And a lot of times they'll be honest and they'll say, look, be prepared. And one other quick hint, if you're going to work for a pre-seed or seed or Series A startup, you're going to be working your butt off. It's just the nature of working in early stage startups. There's very few ways around it. So yeah, just expect that. I'll turn it over to John.
Yeah, John, over to you. You're
Yes.
mute. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What I can say there is that I will give one advice. It's about organization skills. I think it's something very, very important when you are working remotely, and especially when you are new to a team. I found that this method helps too much because sometimes you get so many tasks. Let's say maybe you have some bug to fix, and maybe you have some features to work on, some chores, and you find that some bugs are being maybe with highest priority, and you also have chores and features to be done with the highest priority. So you will find yourself with a mix of tasks with high priority, and you don't know how to manage all of them. Maybe for this task, they are asking you to do it quickly, the others to do it quickly, and there is maybe something to be done also. So you find that all those things are creating a kind of mix to you, and it's being hard for you to handle them at the same time. So what I found is very important is to develop your organization skills. And as an advice, the first thing that I found is better to do is when you start your day, take your, let's say, for example, 15 minutes to organize and read your notifications, emails, to go back in reading the descriptions of your remaining tasks. Then take other 30 minutes, let's say, for example, 30 minutes to plan your day, to set some deadlines. Let's say, for example, you say, I'm going to work for 3 hours for this task, 3 hours for this task, and the remaining hours for my chore. And then take one task at a time, because most of the time when you mix your tasks, sometimes you just get stuck, and you at the end of the day, you just find yourself, you didn't do anything. Sometimes you even spend a day, you found that when you analyze, you just found that there's nothing you did, to be honest. And it doesn't mean you wasn't on your computer. It was there, you were working, but you didn't do anything you can show, like you can say, I did this today. So I think those issues happens when we don't have those organization skills. And most of the time when we work on so many tasks at a time. So as an advice, I can say, let's organize our day. At the beginning of the day, just take some time to read all notifications, to be aware of everything that's going on. Then take like 30 minutes to organize the day. Maybe sometimes you can say, oh, so I'm going to lose the 30 minutes just to organize the day. But trust me, it's so much important, and it helps you to set those deadlines. And when you know that I'm going to work for 30 hours for this task, and it's only that task, most of the time you will even do it before those 3 hours. Yeah, that's where I can add there.
Yeah, I think it is important to actually set priorities when you're starting off your day. While I was working with a company before coming on CodeMonk, I used to do tasks based on what I was asked for that day, thereby leaving the other ones I was supposed to work on, which are more important. So I discovered I wasn't very productive and things were not going the way it should. So when I discovered prioritizing my tasks, it made me more productive for a day, even if it is one task you're able to do a day, yes, you're able to complete that particular task, and that gives you an edge rather than working on several tasks and without you having a particular task completed. And more like what my CEO would always say it's better you work on one task a day and make sure you have it completed rather than working on multiple tasks. So this is very important. Thanks, John, for that heads up. Okay, yeah. So the next question says, how important? Okay, the next question says, can you share some success stories of best practices for remote workers and job seekers looking to work in tech industry? Let's start with John.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what I can say, I will give an example of one of my previous roles at Torre. At a given time, I was working as a frontline engineer. The work was to analyze bugs when people post the bugs in the bugs channel. Our work was to analyze the bugs, to know what's going on, what's failing. We create a card, then we assign it to maybe to a squad or to a given developer. Let's say, for example, someone developed it and there is a bug, so if they want to fix it, or maybe let's say this service is for this squad, so the task will be to know what's going on, what's failing, what's expected, then we assign the task to a given squad. So in that time, I was joining the team. I was a developer and I didn't know everything about the platform because it was about 4 to 5 squads, and I was working in one squad. So it means the other squads, I don't really know much things about what they do in the other squads. So working as a frontline engineer, I found that there is a need to know exactly what others do in the other squads. But since I'm no longer working on bugs, on fixing bugs, but creating cards for bugs, for me, it requires me to know everything about the other services. So I found that issue and I developed something that's really, really important, and I need to share it with you. There is sometimes you find that there is no way for you to know all those things at a time because they are becoming many. Sometimes you found that maybe a company is using TypeScript, JavaScript, Python, PHP, so many languages, and some other technologies you don't know. But you are required to be working effectively, and you have deadlines. As you see, it's a challenge. So what I did, it was to, first of all, to talk to my managers and ask them for advices and tips to master those things very quickly. I think there are what we call, sometimes we confuse experience. For me, I understand that we may have some experience, like let's say you have 10 years of experience in, let's say, JavaScript. It's okay, you know that skill, JavaScript, but there are also experience according to a given project. even if you are a senior developer in JavaScript, if you find, let's say for example, you are going to work on a project and you are a senior developer in JavaScript, but there is a junior developer who already have, let's say, 2 years working on that project, that junior developer is more likely going to know many things about that project than you, even if you know many things about JavaScript than him. So I found that the first element to do is, again, it's going to be about communication. Ask for tips to people who knows about the project. Even if you are supposed to know many things about the programming language they use, but get time to ask for tips to people who knows about the project, because experience related to a project is different with your experience related to your skills. Yeah, so what I did there was to ask to each and everyone about the project to give me the tips that I might use to understand the structure, the general structure of the project. Yeah, so I think this is something to develop, and yeah, to try to talk to everyone and collect the information from everyone. At the end of time, you will just mix all those informations and you will reach at a given level you didn't even expect. Yeah.
Yeah, that
And I
sounds
think,
that sounds
you know,
great. No, you can go on, so you can go on.
yeah, in terms of best practices, you know, there's practices before you get the job and once you're in the job. I'd say one of the biggest ones before you get the job as you're job searching is to manage yourself and your emotions. I highly recommend everyone here, do not get emotionally invested in any one company. Like, you might think the interviews are going well, people are smiling, all that good stuff, just to get a no, and you're bummed out. So, you know, try to remain neutral, even if you like the company, you got a sense you might get it. So never overinvest in any one opportunity, and really treat the job process as a sales process. As you're interviewing, make sure you're adding other interviews to your backlogs. There's a ton of tools now that let you do that. I just use a basic spreadsheet, but you can use whatever you find's good. It is heartbreaking, as someone's saying, it's super heartbreaking. And so that's why I recommend people just like not get emotionally invested. You know, treat the job process as like running a marathon. It's gonna be long, but you'll make it to the finish line. And then before as well, you know, you might see these jobs listing a bunch of coding languages. I would try to identify what's like the core one that, you know, is required for the job and play to that. And many times, like one job required Rust, but I was very strong in JavaScript. But as long as you see you're strong in one thing and you can quickly pick up another language, it can give you a good boost. Now, let's talk once you're actually on the job. And I think the first 30 days are key to make an impression. And being the new person on the team, it's a perfect time to network horizontally and vertically. So you can talk all the way from the CEO down to your colleagues, down to people in other departments. You want to build allies because you never know what might be happening to your team or department. You might need to shift to someone else's. So that's another important thing. Managing yourself as well in both job searching and on the job is important, as John said. I highly recommend like GTD or Get Things Done as a framework for this. Todoist is as a free application as well that simplifies the process. What I found particularly with the last 2 managers I have, they just have manager in the word title, but there's no actual like people management besides maybe they assign you a Jira ticket or something. So you've got to get really good at managing yourself. And what you might find starting to happen is if you're really good at managing yourself, you might end up managing these projects as well, which is an added bonus. I think look for opportunities as well to learn and contribute and other parts of the company once you're in the role. But don't contribute too much where they feel they can pass their work on to you. You know, volunteer. Some companies will have like remote activities, so you can volunteer, you can join certain remote clubs. So that's another cool way. But I'll stop there. But before I do, I'll throw in one little hint. Like I'm seeing Rust and TypeScript in super demand right now. But just don't go out and learn those things because it's potentially in demand. Like learn what you're strong in, or lean into what you're stronger in, and what's going to get you a job in the areas you're looking for. So if Python is big in your city or in the remote companies you're looking for, just do Python. Don't worry with Lord and Rust. You might be taking yourself off the path and doing yourself a disservice. So yeah, I'll stop there, turn it over to Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I think I'm seeing some comments in the chat section, and somebody is actually asking what is the time span to actually apply to remote jobs to be able to land one. Maybe I'm going to start. There's actually no time span for that. I wouldn't want to tell you if you apply at this rate, you should have a job in 3 months. There's no time span. It all depends on you and how you perform in your interviews. This is very, very important. So you need to know what your skills are. Your skill set needs to be sharp. Your communication skills needs to be sharp, and also your soft skills. All these things we've talked about, make sure you have them handy, and make sure you are good with them. So there's no time span to that. If Saeed or John has any other thing to add to that, but you just need to continue to apply.
Yeah, I can add something there, and I will directly talk about another question there. I think it's for someone who asked if should I have a 3-page resume or a 1-page. I think I can add something there. Most of the time, we used to list our tasks when listing the job experiences. We used to list tasks and responsibilities, but I think recruiters doesn't need to know everything you've been doing in your experience. But I think what they need to know is what you give as a result to a company. Let's say, for example, you developed an API and this API did something important to a project. So talk about the result of what you did, not the task, because some people write in their resume something like, I worked as I did backend development, front-end development, mobile development, UX research, UI design, things like that. Generally, recruiters will never know what you did, what you really did, and the result you get to a company. So I think the first element that we should take into account is to review our CV and to show them what we can bring to a company in terms of result. Yeah, it's very, very important.
Yeah, and to address the question around timelines, eventually you get a rhythm and a tempo, but I would say general rule of thumb, whatever the number you think in your head is, double it by 2 or maybe triple it. Particularly, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I do notice the US companies are always shifting their timelines. Particularly Web3, they pull roles very often in Web3. So as we go into these different quarters, companies thought they had budget for certain roles, and the roles end up changing or getting pulled. So, be aware of that. I don't want to bias anyone's thought process. The fastest I've ever gotten hired has been 2 weeks. The slowest has been north of 3 months. I would say in the current setting that we have, anticipate 3 to 9 months to be realistic.
Okay.
But there's no hard schedules. Now, the good thing is you can kind of play with time. If you're a hot candidate on the market and you've got multiple interviews, not even offers, you can leverage that to your favor. If you sense that they want you to say, hey, I'm in the near end of the process with so-and-so companies, especially helps if these companies are their competitors. You know, can you guys speed up the interview process? And they have a lot of the times accommodated for me. What if would have taken 4 to 6 weeks, they managed to get it done in 2 days. So you might have leverage, but be careful how you play that card. Um, in my experience, though, rushing the process that way has never really played out in my favor. So I would just work on their timelines. If it's 2, 3 weeks past in, particularly 2 weeks, and you haven't heard back anything, check in with the recruiter or hiring manager. But in general, I would expect an adjustment in the timelines given the market, because companies now know they can hire higher quality talent for cheap. Because the FAANG companies, at least in the US, most of them have hiring freezes.
Yeah, I think we have another question in the comment section, and it's asking, how can I land my first front-end developer role? I've been applying for more than a year. Please, is there a platform I can use? Let me start by saying CodeMonk is a platform for tech developers. We help tech developers get jobs, and we also have clients come to our platform to hire tech developers. So you can actually get to register on our platform and start applying. But like Said said, you need to increase the amount of applications you're sending out today to actually land a role as fast as possible. And then, like I said earlier, you also need to make sure your skills and your soft skills are all intact, and make sure you are good at those skills. John or Said, do you have anything to contribute to that?
Yeah, it seems like, CodeMonk's a great platform. They handle payments. There's there's reviews. There's a lot of great things compared to other, say, Upwork. So you want to play. Upwork's a big pool. There's too many people from all over the world, so it becomes hyper competitive. So services like CodeMonk lets you, exposes you to a more targeted audience. Exactly as Peter suggested, Upwork is a race to the bottom. And the other tip I'd say is apply directly on the company's websites, because sometimes a lot of these portals are just collecting your data, but you're not actually applying to the company. So just be aware of that. There's a lot of job scams everywhere, so just always double check, make sure it's a real company. It's important. And the other tip I found recently too is, before I used to spend a ton of money on these tools to adjust my resume for each job. Now I just make a strong, general enough resume with enough keywords that will get past the filters, and I just send that in, and it's going to be a numbers game, but it just takes so much time to adjust your resume for each job description. I personally found it's not worth it. So I'll turn it over to John, see if he's got more tips.
No, but what I will maybe say is sometimes we confuse recruiters. Like, we give them so many different things. Like, what you mentioned in your resume is different maybe from what they see in your LinkedIn profile, and then different with, let's say, for example, for CodeMonk, it's again different from what they see in your CodeMonk profile. So recruiters might be confused, and they don't even know what to trust. I think that's something to avoid.
Yeah. You can go on Said. You can go on.
Yeah, to John's point, I would make sure you've got your story down, and the story is consistent, on your Twitter, on your LinkedIn. and so on. Of course, depending on where you're interviewing, you may want to adjust your LinkedIn a little for that job, but in general, make sure your branding is consistent. And Twitter actually has been a really good resource I found to find jobs as well. Sometimes you might find, the hiring manager or the recruiter themselves post on Twitter, and they'll post with special referral links that can get you to the front line. So it's another great place to get resources, but in general, make sure your story is down and it's consistent. Because it could be tricky. Like the resume that I apply with, if you look at my LinkedIn, it is very different. But that was intentional. So yeah, make sure you've got your story down. So yeah, I'll turn it over to you, Paul, for the next question.
Yeah. Before I ask my next question, please remember this is also a networking event, so you can easily drop in your Twitter link in here, and you can follow up anyone who you feel you want to follow up and link or network with. This is an avenue for developers to network with each other. I think we have about 15 minutes to round up. So the last question, okay, maybe we do it like this. If we have a question from the audience, please, you can drop it in the chat, or you raise your hand, then I'll call you to actually ask your question. And then why I actually put up the last question. So the last question, what are some of the big advantages of remote work, and how can job seeker leverage these advantages to build a successful career in tech? Some of the advantages.
We touched on that, right? If you're talented, you can get hired from anywhere in the world. I think, potentially, there's pros and cons to remote. And one of them is office politics. I think with remote, depending on the company, there could be a little bit less, which means you might last longer at a company. So it can, I guess, improve your career retention. I think to a lot of points John has mentioned too, I think it's really good for your overall well-being. Not having to commute is a real blessing. I never want to go back to taking the early morning trains in New York, 2 hours commute both ways. Because sometimes for a lot of people, the morning is when they do their best work and you're wasting those valuable hours. So there's that. But again, I will preface, there's a big shift in the US, at least, to go back to hybrid. A lot of that shift is being driven by politics and business. And the old school executives have the stereotype that when employees are remote, they're not actually working. And the politicians want people to get back to the city so they can spend money and the real estate value can go up. There's a shift, but I still think startups and particularly Web3 companies will embrace this a lot more because they save money. But yeah, I'll turn it over to John to see if he's got any more tips on the greatness of remote work. If
Yeah,
not,
John.
I'll throw on one more.
Okay.
You want to find, I noticed with remote work, it starts with the founder down. You want to find founders who believe in remote work and they believe they can build a more effective company and culture on remote work, versus kind of these legacy companies who, they're built pre-COVID, and they're kind of used to the office culture and passing by, their employees and trying to micromanage them that way. So, and most new founders, remote is their first obvious choice.
Yeah, John, if you have contributions to this, you can actually
Yes,
put that in.
Yeah, of course. What I can say is that remote work provides many benefits to developers, including greater flexibility, because it's also increased productivity, and it gives a better work-life balance. As a technology, it's currently advancing, and remote work is likely to become even more prevalent, and it's allowing developers to work from anywhere in the world and collaborate with colleagues with diverse backgrounds. I think this is something that makes me think remote work is definitely the better choice. And if we mention productivity, I've found people working on site for many years, but what I found is that people who work on site, they first of all, they lose some time when they're going to work. And those people have so many breaks, and there's no way to control what they are doing. It's so much difficult to know exactly, to give them tasks and follow what they are doing step by step. It's somehow difficult, but with remote work, it's all about tasks and deadlines. That's why it's improved people's productivity. Yeah, that's what I can add there.
Yeah, I feel so too. And the only issue where you have say people not actually get to do what they want to do is when they are being micromanaged, and when you have say your manager coming in and saying, have you done this every time, just trying to micromanage you would actually reduce your productivity, because you would have in your mind what my manager is going to say this time around. So a lot of those needs to be cut down. You need to put more trust in your employee as a remote employer, so you can have them perform better for you. So these are some of the advantages I feel remote work offers, and you also have a chance of working with some of the biggest global brand around the world. Is also one of the chance of remote work. Say you work with Microsoft and all those big companies, or maybe you work with CodeMonk or something. So this is actually some of the advantages of remote work. So I think with that, yeah, I don't. Do you want to add
I
something?
think something else. There is something else. With remote work, you have a chance to meet strong people and diverse people, in the tech area than working on site. And I think those people are very, very, very important for our career growth.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for anyone interested in the course, you can see that Said just posted a course in the chat link. I mean, in the chat channel. You can click on it and go and view the Chat GPT course. It's for everyone here. In tech, you can actually learn a lot from that. Also, please don't forget, we have another event for tomorrow. It's called crowdfunding from CEDARS. You can also make sure to attend. This will teach you if you are looking to become an entrepreneur or a founder of a new company, to teach you how to crowdfund and also make fund available for your new startup. This is also something you would be happy to attend. Also, don't forget to join us on Discord. Discord, we have 5,000 developers already on the Discord and still counting. So you can actually join to meet with other developers, interact with them, ask questions if you have difficulty in any of your technical, technical development. So this platform is available for you to leverage on. So make sure to join us on Discord. I'll be putting the Discord link in here so that you can join us. We'll be hosting this next month, same dates, and we'll also be having some other guests to talk about other topics on tech. So happy to have everyone here who have attended. I'm really excited about this. Thank you, John. Thank you, Said. Thank you, Drew. Even though we are not able to actually hear you partake in this, but thank you so much for coming. Thank you, everyone. If you're interested in participating in our next event as a speaker, you can send me an email. I'll be dropping my email here too. Send me an email and we can get that sorted. So thank you everyone for joining. I'm happy. If you have any closing remarks, John and Jabal, please, you can add in that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us, Paul. This has been incredible. And thank you everyone for spending the last hour with us. My email is in the chat if anyone wants to reach out on my Twitter or LinkedIn. And I know how tough the job process can be. Keep going. I'm rooting for you guys all here.
Yeah, John, you have any closing remarks?
No, I just wanted to thank you all for taking this time with us. It was really, really amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Happy to have you here once again. And till next month, but don't forget we have another event for tomorrow. So make sure you attend that event. You can see that in our calendar on Discord. I have the link there. You can just register for it and get to attend the event for tomorrow. But thank you for making it down here. I really enjoyed myself today, and the topic, I believe everyone has been able to pick one or 2 points in having more ideas to apply for remote jobs. Thank you. And this is where we end this for today. Yeah. Have a nice day, everyone, and meet you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.